CreepyCorner stories.
Before we begin, thanks for sticking around this past week. Uploads have been every other day, but that changes now. Starting tomorrow, it's daily stories again. Thank you for your understanding, and let's get into tonight's stories. I want to say thank you to Lisa Collin and Dark Impulse 85. I ordered Ouija board from the dark web. Every year on my birthday, the Planchette moves by itself. So I'm not even sure where to start with this, because I've never written anything like this before, but I've seen enough stories on r/nosleep, and I've watched those creepy animated horror videos on YouTube. Y'all know, Here's My Story, Onesie, and that channel that makes everything feel like it happened in your hometown. I always figured most of those were fake, or like exaggerated as hell. But after what's happened the last few years, man, I don't know anymore. I'm not gonna say my real name, but you can call me Sam. I'm 24 now, and this all started when I turned 19. That was the year I bought something off the dark web. Yeah, real original, right? But hear me out. So here's how it started. I was living in my mom's basement in Western New York. My birthday was coming up, and I didn't have any real plans. Just the usual depression cake from Walmart, a couple texts from people I hadn't talked to since high school, and a TikTok feed full of fake-looking party videos in LA. I was broke, working at a gas station next to a closed-down Pizza Hut, and scrolling Reddit more than I should have been. That week, I stumbled on a thread in r/deep web browsing. You know the kind. Sketchy screenshots, half of them in Russian, links blurred out, people bragging about stuff they bought from hidden markets. Most of it was just dumb. Drugs, fake passports, mystery boxes. But one post stood out. It had no upvotes, barely any comments. Title was just, Spirit Board, not for casuals. Don't DM unless serious. The image was just a plain wooden Ouija board. Real simple design. No letters burned in. Just carved. Handmade. The planchette looked like it was made of black bone or something. I wish I saved the image, but the post got deleted like 2 days later. Of course, being the dumbass I am, I messaged the guy. His profile was basically blank. One post, 0 comma, and a username that was just a string of numbers and symbols. I'll never forget his reply though. All it said was, every year, only on your birthday. Do not burn it. Do not bury it. Never ask it the same question twice. I legit thought it was some ARG or Creepypasta bait. Like, who says stuff like that unironically? But I replied anyway. How much? He didn't answer. Just sent me a Bitcoin wallet address and a warning. Delivery in 10 days. Keep your door unlocked the night before. I know. Red flags all over. But this was right around the time all those YouTubers were making videos like, I bought a haunted doll off the deep web at 3 a.m. and crap like that. Luna was doing his storytelling thing about his dumb friends and sketchy parties, and I was just sitting there thinking, why not me? I had some crypto left from a Dogecoin phase, so I sent it. About $60 worth. Didn't even think it would actually show up, but it did. 3 days before my birthday. Not 10. I was playing Apex at like 1 a.m. Headset on, lights off, door was locked. I remember this exactly. I was eating the crust of some soggy Domino's slices I'd left in the box from the night before. And then I heard it. Not a knock, not a ring, Just this thud against the door, like someone leaned into it and waited. I muted my mic and just sat there. My heart started doing that weird flutter thing. You know when you're not even scared yet, just aware. Eventually I got up, crept to the door, and cracked it open. No one was there. Just a box. Plain brown cardboard. No tape, no shipping label. Nothing. It smelled like firewood and something dead underneath. Like dried blood on a fireplace poker. Inside was the board, wrapped in yellowed newspaper from 2002. The board was way heavier than it looked. I swear it had weight like stone, but felt warm, like it had been held recently. No instructions, just the board and the planchette. And stuck underneath the board, a folded piece of notebook paper with 4 words scrawled in red ink. Do not record it. That's when I knew this wasn't a prank. Like no influencer would have gone that far. I should have thrown it out. But it was already past midnight, my birthday, and I was curious, alone, buzzed, and maybe a little desperate for something. I set it down on my desk, moved my mouse pad and keyboard aside, lit a candle, just for the vibe, shut my door, and I started. I didn't know what I was doing, okay? I asked the stupidest questions first. Is anyone there? Nothing. What's your name? Nothing. But then I asked, just playing around, how old am I? And the planchette moved. I swear to God, it jerked under my fingers, not slid. It snapped over to the number 1, then 9. I pulled my hands off, instantly, sat back. My heart was hammering so loud, I could hear it in my ears. There was no one else in the house. Mom had gone to her boyfriend's cabin for the weekend. It was just me. I whispered, "How did you know that?" The planchette didn't move. Then I remembered the rule. Never ask the same question twice. So I tried something different. What do you want? Slowly. So slowly, it made my skin crawl. The planchette started to slide. F-L-E-S-H. I blew the candle out and threw the board back in the box. Didn't sleep that night. Here's where it gets worse. I told myself it was just me. I was tired, alone, imagining things. I didn't touch the board again. But every year, on my birthday, at exactly midnight, I hear that same thud at the door. And when I check, the board is out, even if I locked it in my closet, even if I hid it in the attic. Once, I mailed it to a friend out of state. They said the box arrived empty. It always comes back. And every birthday, the planchette moves. It's always different, but it's always knowing. Last year, I asked, "Who are you?" It spelled, "Your shadow knows." I haven't asked it anything since. I turned 25 in a few days. And this time, I think I'm ready to break the rule. I'm going to ask it the same question, twice, just to see what happens. I didn't throw the board away after that year. I didn't destroy it. I didn't cleanse it with sage, like some comment suggested, when I finally worked up the courage to post a vague version of my experience on a burner Reddit account. I did something worse. I tried to forget it. Life kept moving, whether I wanted it to or not. I moved out of my mom's basement, got an apartment that smelled like industrial cleaner and burnt coffee, right above a Starbucks that never closed. I started working night shifts at a fulfillment warehouse, where time felt fake and everyone looked half dead. I made an Instagram, deleted it, made a new one. Doom scrolled TikTok until 3 a.m. every night, watching animated horror stories narrated by calm voices that promised this really happened. I told myself those stories were fake. Mine wasn't. The thing about the board is that it doesn't feel evil all the time. Most days, it's just an object, heavy, quiet, patient. It sat under my bed like an extra shadow, wrapped in an old hoodie, doing nothing. Months would pass where I'd forget about it completely. I'd go on bad Tinder dates, eat McDonald's at 2 a.m., stand in line at Target behind screaming kids and tired parents, and think, yeah, this is reality. Then my birthday would show up on my phone calendar, and my stomach would drop. This time, I decided to document everything, not record it, no cameras, no audio, but write it down. Old school. Notes app at first, then a real notebook. Dates, times, sensations. I wanted proof. For myself, if nothing else. I told myself I was in control. That lie lasted exactly 3 hours. Midnight came quietly. No dramatic music. No power outage. Just the hum of the fridge and the muffled sound of a drunk couple laughing outside the Starbucks downstairs. I was sitting on my couch, shoes still on, keys in my hand, like I was ready to run. The board was still under the bed. I hadn't touched it in months. I didn't plan to. Then something scraped. Not loud, not sudden. Just a soft, deliberate sound of wood dragging across carpet. I didn't move. The scraping stopped. Then came the sound that finally broke me. A slow, shallow breathing that didn't match my own. It wasn't in the room exactly. It felt closer than sound, like pressure behind my eyes. I forced myself to stand. The board was no longer under my bed. It was on the kitchen table, perfectly centered, aligned with the edges like someone had measured it. The planchette sat upside down, waiting. Here's the part that messes with me the most when I think about it now. I didn't feel scared the way you're supposed to feel. I felt focused, sharp, like my brain had been tuned to the right frequency for the first time. I sat down, didn't light a candle this time, didn't say hello. I put my fingers on the planchette and asked the question I'd been rehearsing for weeks. Why me? The planchette moved immediately. No hesitation. Nearest. Nearest. That was it. I laughed. I actually laughed, because it sounded stupid, like a bad riddle. Nearest what? I asked. The planchette stopped. I waited. My phone buzzed on the table. A notification from Google Maps. Are you still at this location? My location services were off. I picked up the phone, heart pounding now, and saw something I still can't explain. The blue dot wasn't on my apartment. It was moving, slowly, like it was being dragged across the map, toward me. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw places I recognized but didn't remember being in. A McDonald's bathroom with a broken lock, a bus stop in Chicago with a flickering ad screen, a parking garage under a mall I'd been to once as a kid, always empty, always lit too brightly, and always with the feeling that someone was just out of frame. The next day at work, I noticed something else. People were wrong, not in a dramatic way, just off. A guy in my shift group stared at me, too long, like he was trying to remember where he'd seen me die. A woman I passed in the aisle whispered my name under her breath. I'd never met her. When I checked my phone during break, my Instagram had a new DM from an account with no profile picture. You're closer than last year. I blocked it. 3 more appeared. Different accounts. Same message. That night, I broke another rule. I asked the board a question I had already asked before. Who are you? The planchette didn't move. The lights flickered. The fridge stopped humming. And then, very slowly, the planchette turned on its own and slid to the edge of the board, pointing directly at me. The air felt thick, heavy, like standing too close to a speaker at a concert. Then letters. N-O-R-A-T-O. TME. My nose started bleeding. Just a little. Enough to drip onto the board. The blood soaked into the carved letters instantly, like it had been waiting. I didn't touch the board again after that. But it didn't matter. Things started happening without it. My phone would unlock itself at night and open photos I'd never taken. Blurry images of places I'd been near but never inside. A Starbucks back room, a McDonald's freezer door, a hospital stairwell with a red exit sign glowing like a wound. Every photo had the same timestamp, 12 a.m., always my birthday. I found the first article 2 weeks later. Local news, small headline, easy to miss. Unidentified individual found dead near transit station. The photo showed a bus stop I recognized from my dreams. The comments were worse. People arguing, joking, someone saying, "Looks staged." I dropped my phone when I read the last line. Authorities report strange symbols carved into nearby surfaces. Cause of death unknown. The symbols match the board. Every line, every curve. I don't know how many people it's connected to now. I don't know if it's choosing them or using me to get closer. All I know is this. Every year, the board needs something new. And this year, it's running out of patience. By the time my next birthday was 3 months away, I had already accepted something that still makes my hands shake when I type it out. The board didn't need to wait for midnight anymore. It had started testing the leash. At first, it was subtle. I'd wake up with dirt under my fingernails, like I'd been digging in my sleep. My step counter on my phone would show miles walked between 2 and 4 a.m. Even on nights I was sure I hadn't left my bed. Google Timeline started suggesting places I'd visited that made no sense. Alleys behind shopping centers, loading docks of grocery stores, the emergency entrance of a hospital 2 towns over. I stopped checking after it logged me inside an abandoned subway station that closed in the 90s. The board stayed where it was, always. Sometimes on the table, sometimes against the wall, sometimes upright, like it had been leaning there, listening. But I started noticing things around it. Footprints that didn't match my shoes. Wet ones, dry ones, bare ones. Once, I found a fingerprint on the planchette, so deep it looked like the wood had softened just to accept it. It wasn't mine. I tried getting help. Not the sage and crystals kind. Real help. I went to a therapist downtown. Nice office. Plants everywhere. A bowl of those strawberry candies old people like. I didn't mention the board at first. Just the insomnia. The missing time. The dread that followed me like a smell. She asked me if I'd ever had violent thoughts. I laughed too fast. She asked me if I felt like something was using me. I didn't answer. Our session stopped after the 3rd appointment when she asked me, very calmly, how I knew the layout of a crime scene that hadn't been released to the public yet. I didn't remember telling her, but apparently I had. In detail. That was the year the messages changed. They stopped being vague. No more "you're closer" or "watch behind you." Instead, I started getting coordinates. Just numbers. Latitude, longitude. Dropped into my inbox, my DMs, my spam folder. Even once through a delivery app notification. I ignored the first few. Then I looked one up. It was a Starbucks in Seattle. One I'd been to years ago on a trip with friends. I remembered it because the bathroom code was written on the receipt, and the barista had a tattoo of a moth on her neck. I looked up the news. 2 days earlier, an employee had gone missing after closing. The comments said the cameras glitched. The locks were intact. No signs of forced entry. No body. Just absence. I smashed the board that night. Or I tried to. I took it to the bathtub, wrapped it in towels, and hit it with a hammer until my arms went numb. The sound was wrong. Not wood cracking. Not stone splitting. More like hitting frozen meat. The hammer broke. The board didn't. When I looked up, the bathroom mirror was fogged over. Someone had written on it with their finger, "Nearest can change." The board was back on the table the next morning. Not a scratch on it. My hands were bleeding. I stopped leaving my apartment after that. Ordered food. Blacked out my windows. Deleted every social app except Reddit. Because reading other people's horror stories made me feel less alone, like I was hiding in a crowd during a fire. That's when I noticed something new. Stories were starting to sound familiar. Too familiar. A post about a guy who found a strange object at his door on his birthday. A comment about a planchette moving without being touched. Someone describing symbols carved into concrete near a mall. Different usernames. Different cities, same shape, same rhythm. It was spreading, and I wasn't the center anymore. The night before my birthday, I heard knocking. Actual knocking. Slow, patient, polite. I didn't answer. It kept going for 20 minutes. When it finally stopped, my phone buzzed. A photo, my front door, taken from the hallway. Then another, taken from inside my apartment. From behind me. I turned around. Nothing was there, but the board had changed. New letters carved into it. Fresh. Red around the edges, like the wood had been cut recently. Names. Dozens of them. Some crossed out. Some circled. One at the bottom, still clean. Mine. I don't remember leaving that night. I remember being at a McDonald's off the interstate, staring at the menu while the cashier asked me why I was crying. I remember standing in a hospital stairwell, counting steps that didn't end where they should have. I remember washing something dark off my hands in a public restroom and realizing the water smelled like pennies. What I don't remember is the moment it happened, but the news did. Another headline, another blurred photo. Another set of comments arguing about whether it was real. This one mentioned a witness, someone who swore they saw a person standing nearby, just watching, not running, not hiding, smiling like they'd finally found the right place to stand. When I woke up at home, the board was gone, not hidden, not moved, gone. In its place, the planchette sat on my chest, warm, heavy, and gently vibrating like a phone receiving a call. When the board disappeared, I told myself that was it. That whatever curse, whatever chain reaction I'd started had finally burned itself out. No more coordinates, no more messages, no more waking up with that sick metallic taste in my mouth like I'd been chewing coins in my sleep. That thought lasted exactly one morning. I woke up to my phone vibrating so hard it rattled off the nightstand and hit the floor. Not a call, not an alarm, a calendar notification. Happy birthday. The date was wrong. It was 6 months early. I checked the year. It wasn't. The planchette was gone when I got out of bed. Not on the floor. Not under the sheets. Just gone. For the first time since this started, I felt something close to panic. Not fear of the thing itself, but fear of not knowing where it was. Then I felt it. A pressure behind my eyes, like someone pressing their thumbs into my skull from the inside. Images flooded in, fast and sharp, like skipping through a video too quickly to process. A mall food court after closing. a Starbucks drive-thru at 2:47 a.m., an empty McDonald's play place, the plastic tunnels humming faintly like they were alive. Always places meant for people. Always places empty when they shouldn't be. And threaded through all of it was the same sensation. Something passing through me, not into me, not out of me, through, like I was a hallway it had memorized. I started noticing changes in my reflection, not dramatic ones, nothing you could point to and say, that's it, just delay. I'd raise my hand and the reflection would follow a fraction of a second too late. I'd blink and my reflection would hold its stare just a little longer than it should. Once, brushing my teeth, I swear my reflection smiled before I did. I smashed the mirror. The shards on the floor spelled nothing. That was worse. People started reacting to me in public. Not everyone, just enough to notice. A barista froze mid-sentence when I stepped up to the counter, her eyes unfocusing like she'd just heard a sound no one else could. A security guard at a mall followed me for 3 floors, hand hovering near his radio, sweat darkening his collar. A kid in a stroller pointed at me and started screaming, not crying, screaming, the kind that makes adults go quiet and look away like it's contagious. I stopped going out unless I had to, and even then, it followed. The messages came back, but not directed at me. They were directed through me. I'd be scrolling Reddit and see a comment reply that wasn't there a second ago. No username, no timestamp, just text, embedded like it belonged. Nearest confirmed. I'd refresh, and it would be gone. TikTok would autoplay videos I hadn't liked. Grainy clips of empty parking garages, train platforms at night, security camera footage, looping with nothing happening for too long. The comments would be disabled. The captions would just be numbers, coordinates. I tried leaving the city, packed a bag, booked a cheap flight, figured distance might break whatever pattern I'd fallen into. Airports are busy, anonymous. No room for something like this to breathe. That was the theory. At the gate, my boarding pass wouldn't scan. The attendant frowned, tried again, then looked at me like she wasn't sure I was supposed to exist. "Sir," she said slowly, "you're not assigned a seat." I asked what that meant. She didn't answer. Behind her, the departure board flickered. Every destination changed to the same word. Nearest. They escorted me out without touching me. No one would meet my eyes. That night, I dreamed for the first time in months. I was standing in a long corridor with doors on both sides. Each door had a name carved into it. Some were familiar, some weren't. Some had been scratched out so hard the wood looked burned. At the end of the hallway was a door with no name, just a symbol, the same one from the board. It opened, and I felt it step past me. I woke up screaming. My phone was in my hand, open to the camera. I don't remember starting the recording. The video showed me asleep, then showed me sit up, then showed something else stand behind me. Not clear enough to describe, not blurry either, just wrong, like my brain refused to finish the shape. The comments were already there, thousands of them, people tagging friends, saying it had to be fake, saying it made their skin crawl, saying it reminded them of something they'd seen once and tried very hard to forget. The account wasn't mine, but it was using my name. I understand it now. The board was never the source. It was a filter, a way to teach it where to go next. And me, I'm not possessed. I'm not cursed. I'm not even special. I'm just the door it learned to open first. I stopped marking time after that. Days didn't feel sequential anymore. They stacked, folded in on each other. I'd wake up with the sun already setting, my phone full of notifications I didn't remember earning, missed calls from numbers that didn't exist, voicemails that were just breathing, comments on posts I never made. People started recognizing me, not like a celebrity, like a warning. I'd walk past a group of strangers and hear someone whisper, "That's him," with the same tone people use when they spot a car accident they don't want to look at directly. Once, in a crowded subway car, a man grabbed his kid and physically turned her face into his chest as I stepped inside. No one sat near me. The train lurched forward anyway. The first time I felt it use me without asking, I was standing in line at a McDonald's just off the highway. I remember the smell of fryer oil, the broken ice cream machine sign taped up again, the fluorescent lights buzzing like insects. I was staring at the menu when my vision tunneled, not blacking out, sharpening. Suddenly, I could see too much. The cracks in the tile, the sweat on the cashier's temple, the faint, pulsing outline around everyone in the room, like heat distortion. And then there was a pull, not forward, sideways, through. I felt something step out of me. The room went quiet, not silent, hollow, like sound was being swallowed before it reached my ears. A man at the far table stood up slowly, eyes wide, mouth opening to scream. He never got the chance. I won't describe what happened next in detail, not because I'm sparing you, but because my brain still refuses to arrange it into something coherent. I remember angles that didn't make sense, pressure without contact, the sound of bone reacting to something it was never meant to meet. When it was over, I was on my knees, hands pressed flat against the greasy tile, sobbing like I'd been punched hollow. No one touched me. No one stopped me when I stood up and walked out. Behind me, someone finally screamed. That was the night the video started trending. Different angles, different uploads, same event. People arguing in the comments, saying it was CGI, saying it was staged, saying it was demonic, saying it was an SCP or some marketing stunt gone wrong. A few comments just said, "Why was he smiling?" I wasn't, but the footage said otherwise. I tried ending it. I don't know how else to say that. I stood on the edge of a bridge at dawn, the city quiet, in that unreal way it gets right before people wake up. I remember thinking that if I jumped, whatever this was would lose its doorway. I remember feeling calm for the first time in years. Then my phone rang. No caller ID. I answered. My own voice came through the speaker, not recorded, not distorted, just me. "Nearest doesn't die," it said. "Nearest opens." The call ended. I stepped back from the edge without deciding to. After that, I stopped resisting. Not because I wanted to, but because resistance made it angrier. The more I fought, the more violent the aftermaths became. The closer it dragged things. Homes, schools, places full of people who didn't deserve to be collateral. When I stayed still, it hunted further away. That's how it trained me, like a dog learns where it's allowed to bite. The board came back one last time, not on my birthday, not at midnight, just there, leaning against the wall like it had always belonged. The names were gone, so were the symbols. In their place was a single sentence carved deep enough to split the wood. "You know what comes next." I did, because I'd been feeling it for weeks now, that tightening sensation, like the world was pulling itself closer around me, like it was learning faster, moving easier, doors opening without being asked. I'm writing this from a place I don't recognize. There's a Starbucks across the street, lights on, no one inside. A McDonald's a block down, drive-through looping the same empty car footage on the screen. My phone says I'm offline, but somehow this is still posting. People keep walking past the window. None of them look in. They already know. If you're reading this and thinking it's just another story, good. That means it's still working. Because the day you read something like this and feel a sudden, irrational certainty that it's too close, that's the day it's learned a new distance. And if, tonight, you hear something shift in your room at exactly midnight, if an object you don't remember buying feels warm when you touch it, if your reflection hesitates before following you, don't ask questions, don't answer knocks, and whatever you do, don't let it learn your birthday, because it doesn't need boards anymore. It just needs someone nearest. Recap from this story. A guy named Sam ordered a strange handmade Ouija board from the dark web as a joke for his 19th birthday. It arrived early with creepy warnings like, do not burn it, do not bury it, never ask the same question twice. On his birthday, the planchette moved on its own, spelling out terrifying answers. Every year on his birthday, at exactly midnight, the board mysteriously reappears, no matter where he hides it, and the planchette moves on its own. As the years go by, the board's influence grows. It starts affecting reality. People go missing. Locations appear in his dreams before they show up in real-life news reports as the sites of unexplained deaths. GPS data logs, places he hasn't been or doesn't remember going. He realizes he's being used as gateway, a conduit for something horrific to enter our world. He is nearest, a terrifying word the board keeps using over and over. Eventually, the board vanishes entirely because it doesn't need the board anymore. It learned to use him directly, his body, his presence, his name. Now, people die when it steps out of him. It doesn't need to ask permission. It doesn't wait for his birthday. It just moves through him, through the world, choosing new nearest people. By the end, Sam understands the truth. He isn't haunted. He isn't cursed. He's the door, and now it's looking for your birthday. My father makes and sells dolls on the dark web to replace souls in hell. Hey folks, welcome to my story. I wasn't even sure where to post this at first. r/no sleep felt right because I haven't had a full night of rest in months. I need to just write it all out. Maybe someone's been through something similar. Maybe someone can explain this better than I can. Or maybe you'll just think I'm insane. I'd be okay with that too. Anyway, here's my story. So for context, I'm 19. I still live at home, which used to be a normal suburban house in Colorado Springs. White picket fence, cul-de-sac, giant Walmart 5 minutes down the road. You know the drill. My dad's always been kind of weird, but in the way that makes people go, haha, that guy's such a character when they leave the house. He's quiet, always smells like wood glue, always wears long sleeves, even in the middle of summer. Said it was from the army, even though I'm pretty sure he never served a day in his life. He owns this side business building and restoring old dolls. Think American Girl, but older, much older. Porcelain faces, glass eyes, hand-sewn lace dresses. He calls them heirlooms. But let's be honest, They're straight up creepy. He sells most of them online, but never through Etsy or eBay. He's always got buyers emailing him directly. Never saw him post an ad, never heard him make a call, but every week there'd be a new package by the door with a different name scribbled on it in red marker. And every time I'd peek at the return address, it'd just say, C. Alighieri, 7400 North Oracle Road, Tucson, Arizona. Same name, every time. I googled it once. It's a real place. A burned down church turned antique bookstore. The store doesn't have a website. Yelp page is barren. Every review has been deleted except for one that just says, "You don't find this place. It finds you." I should have paid more attention, but I didn't. Not until I found the doll in the freezer. It was late June when everything started to shift. I remember because it was the same night everyone was posting about that weird TikTok screaming doll challenge where you record yourself alone in the dark asking Siri if the girl in white is near. I didn't buy into that stuff, but my friend Andy thought it was hilarious, so we tried it just for kicks. Of course nothing happened, at least not that night, but the next morning our fridge was making this weird clicking sound. Thought it was the ice maker going out. I opened the freezer, and there it was, one of Dad's dolls, just sitting in there, legs bent up like someone had crammed it in too fast. The eyes were shut, which was already strange because they're supposed to stay open. The mouth was open though, like weirdly open, almost like it had been screaming when it froze. I took a photo, posted it on my private Insta with the caption, "WTF, is this Dad?" But before anyone even liked it, the post vanished. Like, completely wiped. I didn't delete it. That same afternoon, Dad came into my room and said, "Don't post about the girls." I asked him what the hell he meant, and he just stared at me, dead in the eyes, and said, "They remember." That night, I snuck into the garage while he was sleeping. There's a back room he always kept locked. He told me it was for varnish and chemicals, and that they could kill me if I opened it. Whatever. I picked the lock with one of those dumb YouTube tutorials. Took 10 minutes. The inside was not what I expected. No shelves, no chemicals, just this low bench with an old leather-bound journal, a magnifying glass, and a mirror that stretched from the ceiling to the floor. But the thing that really messed me up, the thing I still see when I close my eyes, was what was on the floor. It was a circle made of dolls. No, I don't mean dolls placed in a circle. I mean the actual limbs were bent and shaped into a near-perfect ring. Arms out, hands joined, knees touching. They were all wearing the same white dresses, same black lace-up shoes, and they were still breathing. Not like moving or twitching. I mean their chests were rising and falling like tiny slow sighs. All in sync. I don't remember walking out. I don't remember screaming. I just remember waking up in bed, face soaked with tears, hands clenched so tight my nails cut my palm. When I ran to the garage the next morning, the door was locked again, but this time there was a new note taped to it. "You're not ready to see what I've saved from below." I stopped talking to Dad after that. Barely ate. I started DMing people on Reddit and Discord, asking if they had heard of dolls being alive, or if there were sellers on the dark web dealing in weird spiritual crap. Most ghost forums ignored me. Some banned me, but one account messaged back. Their username was D0LLC0FIN, and their profile pic was just a pixelated photo of a girl with black eyes. No whites. The message said, Your father was initiated. Do not burn the dolls. They keep the damned quiet. I asked who they were. They said, I was one of them. I remember your face. You were 6. Now listen, I know that sounds insane, but I haven't told you the worst part yet. I went through our old photo albums, you know, like actual print ones, and in one of them, I found a picture of my 6th birthday at Chuck E. Cheese. Balloons, cake, the giant animatronic rat, the whole vibe. There were 5 kids in the photo. Me, Andy, my cousin Lily, and 2 girls I didn't recognize. They were wearing white dresses, same as the dolls, and both had their eyes shut. I didn't sleep after finding the birthday photo. Just sat in bed, phone in hand, staring at the 2 girls no one else in my family could name. I sent the picture to my mom. She moved out when I was 10 and barely replies to anything I send. But this time, I got a response within minutes. Take that down. I told him no photos of the girls. She didn't answer when I called. Wouldn't text again after that. Changed her profile picture to black the next morning. I haven't seen her post since. The next few days were a blur. Dad started locking his bedroom door for the first time in my life. I heard the scraping of wood at 3 a.m. Soft hammering, something like wet stitching. He stopped eating dinner with me, kept the blinds closed, moved all his tools out of the garage and into the basement. He'd passed me in the hallway and mutter things under his breath. I heard him once, clear as glass. Can't let them rot again. I swear I saw his eyes moving in 2 directions at once. By day 6, I'd convinced myself he was drugged out. Meth or fentanyl or some rare mold infestation in his stupid antique dolls. I even Googled mental collapse from breathing varnish fumes. I wanted there to be an explanation, something I could name, but the only thing I got was another message from D0LLC0FIN. They'll open their mouths soon. Don't listen. I threw my phone across the room and it cracked. Spiderwebbed the screen straight down the middle. On the 7th day, my dad left the house at 2:37 a.m. I know because I was standing in the upstairs hallway in the dark, just waiting for something to happen. He walked out the front door in nothing but his jeans and undershirt, barefoot, carrying a doll in each hand. I followed him, not bravely, just broken, empty, like my body had decided it was better to know the truth than to keep pretending I could ignore it. I didn't grab a jacket, just my phone and a flashlight. He walked half a mile into the woods behind our neighborhood, the kind of area we'd always avoided because it backed up into an old collapsed mine they never cleaned up. At some point, he started talking to the dolls, whispering fast and low like an auctioneer for ghosts. Then he reached this clearing with a single rusted swing set. No kids had played here in years, but the seat was swaying. There were others waiting, 3 men, all in long coats. One had a hood, another had no shoes. The third didn't have a face. Not no eyes or no mouth. I mean no face. Just skin stretched smooth like a balloon, stitched around the edges with something black and glossy, like spider legs. They didn't speak, didn't even look at me. They only looked at my dad and the dolls he placed carefully on the swing seat, like they were living, breathing infants. The men pulled out 2 wooden boxes, coffin-sized. Dad stepped back. The faceless one opened the lids. Inside, I saw what I can only describe as stillborn children, but larger, older. One had braces. One had a band-aid on its knee. Their skin looked wet, like they'd just been pulled from water. Their eyes weren't shut. They weren't there. The sockets were scooped clean, hollow. My father kneeled in front of the boxes and said, "These are the ones who wanted out. They paid the toll." The man with the hood leaned forward, reached into his coat, and took out a piece of parchment. I swear to God, it looked like skin. He handed it to my dad, who read the names aloud. Lena, Cambria, Marta, Noah, Ellie, Ash. As he spoke each name, the dolls on the swing twitched, not like animatronics or robotic movement. I mean twitched, like nerves firing in a corpse. Their mouths opened slightly, and from each one, a sound came out. A voice, childlike, panicked, each one crying, "No, no, 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 no." The men just stood there, listening, breathing heavy. One of them laughed. I stepped on a branch. My father froze. He turned his head slowly, like a rusted screw turning in a wall. "Go home," he said. I couldn't move. "Go, before they see you." And when I didn't listen, when I just stood there, heart racing like a trapped animal, my dad stood up, grabbed the flashlight from my hands without ever touching me, and said, "You don't want to hear your own name, do you?" He came home at 6:12 a.m. Didn't say a word. Went straight to the basement. I didn't follow him this time. Instead, I finally unlocked his laptop. It was easy. The password was my name. Inside his folders, hidden beneath 6 dummy files, labeled taxes, church emails, and doll schematics, was one called Air Archive. I opened it. Thousands of photos, not dolls, children. Most were aged 6 to 13, all of them in various states of something. Some looked like mugshots. Some looked like pictures taken secretly at McDonald's. One was in front of a goddamn Space Mountain sign at Disney World. Another in a bathroom mirror with the Snapchat dog filter still over her face. I clicked on a file labeled Session 63, LEL. The video was only 29 seconds. It showed my dad holding a crying girl in his workshop. She was begging for someone named Grandma. He said, "No one hears you down here, sweetheart, but you're going to be very still now. Very still." He reached for a jar. Something in it moved. I closed the laptop. The next morning, I received a package on the front porch. No return address. Just a tag tied around it in red thread. For what's next? Inside was a doll, but not like the others. This one had my face, my real face, down to the scar on my chin from falling off a swing in 3rd grade, down to the stupid patch of acne I'd been scratching raw the week before. Its eyes were closed, and its mouth was stitched shut. But worst of all, the back of its neck had a tag sewn into it, just like every other doll he sold. It read, "Property of Hell, slot claimed, do not resale. Soul number 1, 127-B, reserved." I tried burning it. Wouldn't catch. I buried it in the woods. It was back on my desk the next day. I mailed it to Andy in Chicago. The box came back unopened, with a sticky note that read, "She belongs under." I haven't seen my father in 4 days, but I hear the whirring of his sewing machine every night from beneath the floorboards. Every night, the dolls whisper louder. Every night, they say my name. And I think one of them is already walking. The night after the doll with my face appeared, the house stopped pretending it was a house. It breathed differently. The walls made sounds I'd never heard before. Slow pops like joints cracking, long groans that dragged themselves through the vents. Even the air felt heavier, like it had weight now, like it could press back if I moved too fast. I locked my bedroom door and pushed my dresser against it, but the handle still twitched every hour on the hour. Not violently, patiently, like something practicing. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating, not ringing, just vibrating. Buzz, 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 every few minutes, like a pulse. When I finally checked, it wasn't notifications, it was drafts. Dozens of unsent drafts in my notes app, all written in my voice, all time-stamped while I was asleep. I'm ready. It's warmer downstairs. I remember the screaming stopped. Please don't sew my eyes. I deleted them. They came back. I turned off the phone. It turned itself back on. At 3:14 a.m., my bedroom mirror fogged over. No steam, no heat, just fog, blooming from the center, outward like breath on cold glass. And then a finger traced letters from the inside. STILLHEREI. Smashed the mirror with my lamp. The glass didn't shatter. It bent, folded inward like rubber, and snapped back into place, smooth and whole again. My reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling. The next day, I tried to leave. I grabbed my keys, backpack, wallet, everything, and ran to the front door. The knob wouldn't turn. Not locked. Just wrong. Like it had never been meant to open from my side. I tried the back door. Same thing. Windows wouldn't break. I threw a chair. The glass rippled like water and swallowed it halfway before spitting it back out onto the floor, unbroken. Outside, life was still happening. I could see my neighbor mowing his lawn. A UPS truck passed by. Someone walked their dog. I screamed until my throat burned. No one looked at me. Not even the dog. That's when I realized something worse than being trapped. I was already gone. The basement door was open. I hadn't opened it. The stairs down were darker than they should have been, like the light didn't know how to follow. I stood at the top for a long time, listening. The sewing machine wasn't running. No whispers, no voices, just a soft, wet sound, like fingers pressing into clay. I went down. The basement wasn't the basement anymore. The walls had been stripped down to dirt and wood. Symbols were carved everywhere. Circles inside circles, lines crossing at impossible angles, names scratched over and over until they overlapped into noise. The air smelled metallic and sweet, like old pennies and spoiled milk. In the center of the room was a chair. Not a normal chair, a restraint chair, leather straps, arm locks, a metal ring bolted behind the headrest, and sitting on the floor around it, neatly arranged, facing inward, were dozens of dolls. Some of them moved, some of them watched. My father stood at the far end of the room, shirtless now. His back was a road map of scars, symbols burned into skin, words carved deep enough to heal wrong. He was thinner than I remembered, stretched, like something had been pulling him from the inside for years. You weren't supposed to wake up yet, he said calmly. I asked him what the hell he'd done to me. He smiled, and I swear to God, his teeth were different. Too many, too even. I kept you, he said. That's what I did. He told me everything like it was a bedtime story. Hell, according to him, was overcrowded. Not fire and pitchforks, storage, endless rooms of screaming things that used to be people, stacked and waiting, their memories rotting into noise. Souls weren't meant to last that long. They degraded, went feral, started leaking. So something else learned how to recycle them. Dolls weren't toys. They were containers, temporary vessels to hold what couldn't be destroyed. A pause button. The rich paid to delay damnation. Cult leaders, CEOs, influencers with millions of followers who smiled on camera and begged in private. But it takes practice, he said, running a hand over a doll's hair. You can't just put a soul in cold porcelain. It screams itself apart. I asked him why the dolls looked like children. He didn't answer right away. Because children still fit, he said finally. Their souls haven't hardened yet. He told me my name wasn't on the list by accident. I wasn't payment. I was inventory control. Something about my birth had gone wrong. I'd been born still, blue, silent, and something else had taken my place before my first breath. He didn't bring me back. He caught me, anchored me before I could fall through. That's why you see them, he said. That's why they talk to you. You're already halfway under. I noticed then that the dolls weren't all watching him. Some were watching me. Their eyes opened, all at once. The chair slid across the floor on its own and stopped in front of me. My legs moved without permission, sat me down. The straps wrapped tight, leather biting into skin. I screamed. The dolls screamed back. A choir of broken voices layered over each other, too many mouths sharing too little sound. My father stepped behind me and adjusted the metal ring. I just need to check the stitching, he said gently. If you're unraveling, we have to fix it before you fall all the way through. I felt something cold press against the back of my neck. Not metal. Bone. That's when the house shook. Something hit the front door. Hard. Over and over. The dolls shrieked. The lights flickered. My father turned. Confused. For the first time. Actually confused. A voice echoed through the basement. Not loud. Close. You're late. The faceless man stepped out of the shadows. Then another. Then another. Too many to count. They weren't here to collect dolls. They were here for me. The strap snapped loose. Not broke. Released. Every doll fell silent. My father backed away, shaking, whispering apologies to things that weren't listening anymore. The faceless man tilted his head toward me. Slot 1127B is unstable, it said. It's walking. Hands grabbed me from behind. Cold, gentle, final. As they dragged me toward the darkness at the back of the basement, toward a door I'd never seen before, carved with names that moved when I looked at them, I heard my father scream, not in fear, in grief. And the last thing I saw before the door closed was him dropping to his knees, clutching the doll with my face, sobbing like a man who just realized he'd saved the wrong thing. I don't know where I am now. Time doesn't work right here, but I can still access Reddit. I can still write, and I can still feel myself thinning. If it does, it means something followed me back, and it learned how to type. I don't know how long I was gone. There was no darkness, no fire, no screaming tunnels like everyone imagines. That's the first lie people tell themselves, that hell announces itself. It doesn't. It blends. It feels like a waiting room that forgot what it was waiting for. When I became aware again, I was standing in a place that kept changing just enough to stay wrong. At first, it looked like a mall. Not a nice one, an old one. The kind with dying fluorescent lights. A pretzel stand that hasn't been open in years. Faded posters advertising movies that came out before I was born. There was a McDonald's at the far end, but the menu boards flickered between prices and names that didn't exist. One of them said, Soul Value Meal for $0. I tried to walk. My feet made no sound. People were everywhere, moving slowly, aimlessly, like they'd forgotten where they were going halfway through the thought. Some were scrolling on phones that weren't on. Some were standing in line at Starbucks, holding cups that dripped black liquid onto the tile without ever emptying. The barista smiled at no one. Their faces kept slipping, not melting, not transforming, just misaligning, like a bad filter struggling to stay locked on. That's when I realized what this place was. It wasn't hell. It was storage. Something tugged at the back of my mind, the same way hunger does when you've ignored it too long. A pressure, a reminder. I felt incomplete, not injured, replaced, like a word missing from a sentence that still pretends to make sense. I reached up and touched my face. It felt normal, too normal. I caught my reflection in a store window, one of those pop-up Halloween shops that never quite closes. I was there, fully, solid, but my eyes looked delayed, like they processed things half a second after the rest of me, like something behind them was watching footage instead of living it. A little girl stood next to me in the reflection. She wasn't there when I turned around, but she was there again when I looked back. She wore a white dress. The employees started noticing me. That's the only word that fits. They wore lanyards with no names. Their movements were too smooth, too practiced. They didn't walk. They corrected position. One of them approached me near a closed Hot Topic. Its face was average, painfully average, the kind you forget instantly. Inventory discrepancy, it said, smiling wider than it should have been able to. Please remain where you are. I ran. The mall stretched, hallways folded in on themselves. Escalators led back to where I started. Every store window showed a different version of me. Older, younger, stitched, hollow, smiling with someone else's teeth. In one reflection, my father stood behind me, hands on my shoulders, whispering something I couldn't hear. I ducked into a bathroom. It looked like every public bathroom you've ever used and hated. Flickering light, graffiti carved into the stalls. One mirror cracked straight down the middle. The writing on the wall wasn't profanity. It was names. Thousands of them. Some were scratched out. Some circled. Some written so deep the tile had cracked. I recognized a few. From the list my father read aloud. Ellie, Noah, Ash, and my own name, written over and over, layered so thick it looked like a wound. The store door behind me creaked open. Something crawled out. Not walked. Crawled. It wore a doll's dress stretched over something too big for it. Its limbs bent wrong, joints reversed, hands dragging like they were heavier than the rest of it. Its face was mine, but unfinished. The mouth hadn't been cut yet. It didn't attack me. It recognized me. It reached out and pressed its forehead against my chest, shaking, making this soft, broken sound like air leaking through fabric. I felt something pull, a suction, a transfer starting. Images flooded my head. A workshop, a knife, my father's hands, the feeling of being hollowed out while still awake, the knowledge that I wasn't the original, that I was the copy that got to walk around because something else agreed to stay quiet in my place. I shoved it away and screamed. The scream echoed too long. The employees came running. I don't remember escaping. I remember being pushed, forced through a door that wasn't there a second earlier, falling through a space that felt like being inverted, inside turned outward, memories folding like paper. I felt hands tearing at me, pulling pieces loose. I felt something snap back into place with a sensation like a bone setting wrong. Then, I woke up. I was lying on the floor of my childhood bedroom, sunlight through the window, birds outside, normal sounds, normal air, my phone buzzing beside me like nothing had happened. Downstairs, someone was making coffee. I checked my arms. No restraints, no marks. I looked in the mirror. I was whole, too whole. My phone had notifications, missed calls, messages, a Reddit draft saved automatically, posted. Comments were full of people arguing, calling it fake, praising the writing, saying it reminded them of some YouTube horror channel. A few users were tagging mods, asking if this violated rules. One comment sat at the top, upvoted higher than the rest. Dizoal Siworfin. You shouldn't have come back incomplete. I went downstairs. My father was at the table, alive, clean, smiling like nothing had ever been wrong. There you are, he said warmly. You slept in. I noticed his hands first. No scars, no burns, no symbols, just hands. Normal hands. Bad dreams? He asked. I nodded, unable to speak. He poured coffee into a mug and slid it toward me. The logo on the mug wasn't ours. It read, Property of Hell, Temporary Return. I looked up. His eyes were empty, not dead, vacant, like a room after furniture's been removed. I fixed it, he said softly. They let me keep you. But something else needed a body. My phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Just one sentence. Check the basement. I didn't want to, but I did. The basement was clean, renovated, white walls, no symbols, no dolls, just one thing in the center of the room, a chair, and strapped into it was someone who looked exactly like my father, screaming through a stitched mouth, eyes begging, alive. My father stood behind me and whispered, You're not the original anymore. If there isn't, then whatever came back instead finally learned how to finish the story. I learned very quickly that pretending to be human is easier than pretending to be yourself. That's the mistake most people would make, thinking something replaces you by copying your habits, your voice, your memories. It doesn't. It replaces you by understanding how little of you was ever required, how routine does the heavy lifting, how repetition passes for identity. I brushed my teeth the same way, ate the same cereal, scrolled the same apps, liked the same posts. I even laughed at the same dumb videos. People slipping in grocery stores, dogs barking at their reflections in Starbucks windows. Normal, effortless. And every time someone looked at me, their eyes slid off, just a fraction too late, like their brain had to correct something before accepting me. No one said anything. That was the worst part. The man in the basement, the one who looked like my father, stopped screaming after the third day. I know because I checked. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself it wasn't my problem, that I didn't owe him anything, that whatever deal had been made, whatever bargain had been broken, it wasn't my fault. But the house has a way of pulling you where it wants you. The chair was still there, the straps still tight, his chest still moving, shallow and uneven, like a malfunctioning machine. His eyes tracked me when I entered. Tears leaked out of the corners and ran into his ears. I crouched in front of him. He tried to say my name. The stitches held. I asked him a question I already knew the answer to. Do you remember making the dolls? He shook his head, desperately, violently. I asked another. Do you remember selling them? More shaking. One last question. Do you remember me? He stopped moving. That was when I understood what had really happened. He hadn't been punished. He'd been emptied. Whatever wore my father's face upstairs wasn't lying when it said it fixed things. It had. It removed the problem, removed the man who knew how the system worked, and replaced him with something compliant, something quiet, something like me. The messages started after that, not from D0SLLC0FIN, from accounts with no usernames, blank profiles, zero history. They didn't DM me, they commented, on unrelated posts, on memes. on videos of people unboxing new phones or reviewing fast food. You look better assembled. How does it feel to be returned? Inventory stabilized. I blocked them. More appeared. I deleted my Reddit account. The comments followed me to Instagram, to YouTube, to TikTok. On a video of a guy filming himself inside an abandoned Universal Studios attraction, the top comment read, "He's walking. Don't let him film the mirrors." I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. That should have scared me more than it did. A week later, the first package arrived. Same red thread, same handwriting, different name, not mine. Inside was a doll I'd never seen before. Taller, heavier, dressed in modern clothes, jeans, hoodie, tiny sneakers. The face wasn't finished yet. Blank porcelain, smooth and pale, like a skull before it remembers what it's supposed to be. Tied to its wrist was a tag. New slot. Local delivery required. My phone buzzed. A location ping. A McDonald's off the highway, 3 states away. I laughed. I actually laughed. Out loud. Because that's when it clicked. That's when I finally understood why I was allowed back. Why I was temporary. Why something had bothered to teach me how to pass. My father didn't make dolls because he was chosen. He made them because he was useful. And now, so was I. I didn't fight it. I wish I could say I did. That I tried to warn someone. That I went to the police. That I burned the house down with the basement and the chair and the screaming thing that used to be a man. But the thought never really formed, because something inside me wanted to go, wanted to see how clean the process was now, how efficient, how much quieter it could be if done correctly. The drive felt short, even though it wasn't. The McDonald's was bright, busy, families, kids laughing, the smell of grease and sugar and heat. I sat in a booth near the window and waited. A woman sat across from me without asking. She had a normal face, that same forgettable average. She slid a phone across the table. On the screen was a live feed from a camera mounted in a room I recognized instantly. A workshop, updated, sterile, automated. "First one's always the hardest," she said, sipping a soda. "But you're already broken in." I asked her who the door was for. She smiled. "Does it matter?" I didn't stay to watch. I never do. That's another thing people get wrong, thinking monsters enjoy the moment. The truth is, enjoyment implies presence, connection, feeling. This is logistics. I drop off. I verify. I leave. The comments stop for a while after each delivery, like the system purring. If you're still reading this, it means 2 things. 1, I'm still allowed to write. 2, you haven't been flagged yet. That doesn't mean you won't be. They watch engagement, retention, how long you linger, how deeply you imagine. Curiosity thins the barrier. That's how they found my father. That's how they found me. That's how they'll find the next container. I don't feel guilty. That's how I know I'm not the original. I feel aligned, complete, like a sentence that finally ends the way it was always meant to. My phone just buzzed again. Another package is waiting. Another slot opened. And somewhere, maybe at a mall, or a theme park, or a drive-through window, you're standing in front of glass, staring at your reflection, wondering why it blinked a second too late. If you hear sewing tonight, don't check the basement. You're already on the list. Recap from this story. The narrator, a 19-year-old living in Colorado Springs, slowly uncovers a horrifying truth about their father, who restores and sells lifelike antique dolls through strange, off-the-grid methods. After finding a doll frozen in the freezer and experiencing bizarre, unexplainable events, like dolls breathing, mirrors distorting, and messages appearing from mysterious accounts, the narrator digs deeper. They discover that their father isn't just making dolls. He's transferring souls of the damned into them, preserving or recycling people who should have gone to hell. Buyers on the dark web pay to be put into these doll vessels to escape eternal punishment. Children's souls are used because they're still malleable. The father isn't working alone. There's an entire network of faceless entities collecting these dolls, with hell functioning like a bureaucratic storage facility for broken souls. Then it's revealed the narrator was never fully human. They were stillborn, caught between worlds, used as a tool to balance inventory. The horror escalates as the narrator is taken to the place behind reality, a liminal space mimicking a mole, and shown the truth. They are no longer a person. They are now part of the system. When they return to the real world, something has changed. They've been repurposed, reassembled. The original self has been removed. Their father has been replaced. Now the narrator delivers new soul-bound dolls to future victims, and they've grown comfortable with it. I built prison with a group I found on the dark web for people that have superpowers. Last night we saw a black van in front of our prison. Okay, so this is gonna sound like some straight up movie plot or one of those animated storytime horror videos on YouTube. But I swear on everything, this actually happened. And I'm not trying to be funny or mysterious or any of that. I genuinely don't know how to sleep anymore. Let me back up a bit. This started about a year ago. I was living in a studio apartment in Chicago, working from home, doing graphic design, and like a lot of people who spend too much time on Reddit, YouTube, and weird corners of Discord, I got curious. Not like criminal curious, just bored curious. I just finished binge watching that animated horror YouTube channel, Here's My Story, and the stories had this almost real vibe, you know, like you could tell it was fake, but just barely. I wanted to see what was actually out there, not the Onion's version of scary, real scary. I wasn't ready. So one night, like 2 a.m. of course, because all bad decisions happen after midnight, I went down a rabbit hole on Tor. I'd used it before just to peek, but I'd never actually interacted with anything. Most of the time, it's just scams, people LARPing as hitmen, or forums with cringe usernames like Digital Lucifer 69. But this night was different. I found a forum called Hollow Frame. No graphics, no banners, just a black page with gray text that looked like it came straight from an early 2000s hacker movie. Every post had a code number and an abstract title like 0349, Genetic Containment Recommendations 0350, Recruitment, Framework, Architects Only 0351, Incident, Pulse/0, Mumbai Starbucks, CCTV corrupted, and the weirdest one, 0352, confirmed. Ability Restraint Protocols, required, Class 2, plus. I don't know why, but that one got me. I clicked it. The post was basically a recruitment thread. It talked about how people with abnormal modifications had started becoming more common, and how traditional containment was failing. I remember it said, hospitals are bleeding, prisons cannot hold gods, volunteers with engineering or psychological operations experience are required. Join Frame. The post had no replies, just a timer at the bottom, counting down from 48 hours, and a button. It said, "Interested?" I clicked it. No hesitation. It opened a prompt and asked me one question. Have you ever seen something that couldn't be explained? I typed yes. Another prompt popped up. Would you help cage it? I didn't even know what that meant. I should have closed my laptop. I should have gone to bed. But I didn't. I typed, yes, if I can see it. That's when everything changed. The next morning, I woke up to an email from a sender that just said, "Frame no reply at nothing." There.org inside was a meeting invite. Zoom, password protected. No name, no agenda. Just a time, 3:33 a.m. that night. I should have ignored it, but of course, I didn't. I joined. Black screen, no video feeds, just an old man's voice. Calm, like a therapist or an audiobook narrator. He just said, "You've seen them, haven't you? People that glitch, move too fast, stare too long, bleed in the wrong color. This world needs a cage, and you'll help build it." And then, faces started popping up. Grainy webcams, people from all over, Japan, Germany, Brazil, Canada. Some were in dim basements. Others looked like they were in labs. One girl was in what looked like a Walmart break room. Another guy had on a McDonald's uniform and took a fry mid-call like it was totally normal. The chat started flooding with one thing. I confirm. Over and over, I typed, "What are we building?" The reply came in a PDF. No title, just a floor plan. It was a prison, not like Alcatraz. This was different. The layout was circular, with reinforced wedge cells, isolated generators, EMF dampeners, and something called a perception sink. One note said, "Room 7, inertium core. Always wear goggles." This wasn't cosplay. They called it Frame 0, the first layer. And the scariest part? They wanted to build it together. No government, no big corporation, just a network of weirdos on the deep web, building a real underground prison for people with superpowers. For the next 6 months, my life turned into a double life. I'd do my normal 9 to 5, hit Starbucks like usual. Funny enough, there was actually an incident at the one near Union Station. More on that later. But at night, I was reading encrypted messages, building CAD layouts, and sending funds to offshore construction firms in places like Kazakhstan and Belarus. They had real contractors, real materials. Frame 0 got built under a fake geothermal site in Iceland. Every team had a role. Architects, containment techs, soft protocol psychs, and us, binders, the ones who go out and bring them in. Yes, them. We didn't call them people. We called them events. I went on my first one in Prague. A guy who could melt reflections. Don't ask me how. Just mirrors around him started liquefying, like mercury dripping sideways. His bathroom was basically a Salvador Dali painting. He had no idea he was doing it. Said he just thought he had bad luck with mirrors. We detained him without resistance, shipped him to Frame 0, and then we just kept going. But last night, everything changed. At 2:47 a.m., our interior surveillance pinged movement outside Frame 0. That's not supposed to be possible. It's literally in a snowfield miles from any civilization. Zero thermal signatures, no roads, no aircraft, just white. But something rolled up. A black van, no plates, no lights, just parked 20 meters from the perimeter. Didn't move, didn't open. We watched for 6 hours. Nothing. Then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., the same time the call first happened, our perimeter sensors failed. Like, all at once. Cameras went dark, lights flickered, backup power surged, but the van was gone. Not drove away. Gone. No tracks, no heat trail, just gone. Then we got a message in the Frame Zero group chat. No username, just a ping. You think you're the only ones building cages, and then another. What makes you think they want to stay in? The van was just the beginning. When I tell people about this, the few I trust, their faces change. Not in a you're lying kind of way. More like, if this is true, I'm never sleeping again. So don't expect a happy little horror tale. You clicked this far, so buckle up. After the black van vanished, we went on total lockdown. Frame Zero was sealed. Surface exits welded shut. Even the decoy geothermal facility up top closed operations. We dropped into black shell protocol, which basically means we cut contact with any system that touches the surface web. No Tor, no Discord, not even SMS. Total internal comms only. Only time we've ever done that before was during Subject 8's breach, and that's a name we do not like to say aloud in the wars. Let me explain something first. You don't interrogate people here. There are no good cop, bad cop routines, no Miranda rights, because the people, or things, inside Frame Zero aren't mentally stable, or even fully human. They don't cry, they don't scream, they watch, like insects, like gods in broken bodies. You talk to one the wrong way, and suddenly you're waking up, covered in your own teeth, and they never left their room. We don't call them inmates. They're called subjects. There are 28 currently. Or were. Subject 12 was the reason the lights started dying. Room 12 is deep in the core, past the dampening wing, under sublevel 3. You only go down there if your badge is level 7 plus. We called it the drip wing because of the constant condensation. Pipes running overhead like tangled veins, old tile floor warped from moisture, fluorescent lights flickering like dying bugs. Subject 12's chamber wasn't like the others. Most subjects get observation ports, padded walls, occasional EMF field locks. 12 got a steel cube, 8-inch walls, no doors, no handles, only a retractable floor hatch we dropped food into via drone. Inside was pitch black, 24/7. The camera feed was infrared, and even then, we couldn't always see it. Him. He was just sometimes missing, but you'd feel him. You'd watch the walls sweat like they were breathing. The feed would warp, audio would hiss, and sometimes even the infrared would just black out, like it blinked. We don't know his name. We don't know what he did. The original file was corrupted, and when I say corrupted, I mean like the video glitched and screamed when we tried to open it. The only note left was handwritten. Do not show Subject 12 its reflection. We didn't know what that meant until last week. We used to do weekly maintenance checks on every subject's chamber, change filters, check the containment seals, that kind of thing. Room 12 was always lost and always done in pairs. That week, it was Pritchard and Zhao, both veterans, both calm under pressure. They were supposed to confirm the hatch drone was working and replace a wall panel that had corroded. Simple task. Except, they went in and only Zhao came back, and she was laughing. Not like, haha, I'm nervous. I mean full body, mouth wrenched, manic cackling, like her face was a broken doll. She didn't respond to anyone, just walked straight through security, leaving a trail of wet footprints, even though her boots were dry. When they caught her, she only said one thing. The walls have teeth now. He gave them a mouth. Then her eyes rolled back, and I kid you not, burst, like blood balloons. We watched the security footage 50 times. There was no pressure change, no seizure. Her eyes just ruptured, like they were never hers to begin with. We tried to retrieve Pritchard's body, sent in the emergency drone with thermal. But when the drone reached the chamber, there were no remains. Only one thing, the camera, from inside the cube, facing out, as if someone had placed it there, gently, pointing back toward the maintenance hatch. And the lens was covered in bite marks, not scratches, human bite marks, but wider, unhinged, like a jaw that had no business being that big. We never opened room 12 again. And then the blackout started. Not like power outages, more like information blackouts. Subjects started losing logs. Entire days missing from surveillance. Cameras playing hours of empty rooms, only to jump forward and show that somehow, without opening a single door, the subject was now across the cell, staring directly into the lens. We thought it was a bug, until we checked room 16. Subject 16 was a Jane Doe recovered from a mass grave in Guatemala, still breathing after 41 hours underground, buried beneath 13 other corpses. When they exhumed her, her fingernails were all gone. Her mouth was stitched shut, and her stomach had been filled with micro SD cards. 128 of them. Every card had footage, none of it hers. Random people from across the world, asleep in their beds. Every card showed a new face, same angle, top down, as if the camera was on the ceiling above them. Always at 3:33 a.m. Some of the people were in famous places. A woman sleeping in a Tokyo hotel, a kid in a dorm room at Oxford. One was even from inside a frickin' Disneyland hotel suite. We cross-referenced one of the faces, a girl from Brazil. She had gone missing a month before. Her body was found last week, inside our ventilation system. Yeah, inside the frame, 0 ducts, no access logs, no breach alarms, no signs of decomposition until the smell got through. Her chest was split open, and guess what we found in her ribcage? A working GoPro, and it was live streaming to an IP that bounced through 1,200 locations, ending in .van. That was the night the scream started, not from the subjects, from the staff. Every hallway had that wet, static feeling, like being inside a CRT television. Radio stopped working, watches slowed down. Someone's phone started ringing, even though it was in airplane mode, and the contact said, "My face." When we opened room 4 to sedate the subject, someone who could speak in backwards Latin and make your mouth foam from 20 feet away, we found the guards in pieces, neatly stacked, alphabetically. I'm talking bones arranged like filing folders, tongues folded into perfect little origami swans, and eyes lined up on the floor like marbles. No breach, no camera footage, no open doors. Room 4, subject was asleep, still cuffed, smiling. The only lead we got came from subject 22. We call him the listener. He never blinks, never eats. But if you sit in front of his cell long enough, he'll tell you secrets, usually useless, sometimes terrifying. But that night, he said something I will never forget. He leaned in, touched the glass with a single finger, and whispered, "You thought you were the jailers. You are the bait." Then he laughed, not like a human laugh, like TV static mimicking laughter, like something trying to fake being human. And then the lights died, and every door in the West Wing opened at once. I'm writing this from the comms vault. The sirens have been going off for 3 hours. The temperature is dropping, and there's something in the air. Not gas, not fog, more like the absence of air, like the hallways are becoming vacuum sealed, one by one. Our motion sensors keep detecting someone walking past cell 12. Problem is, room 12 was sealed, and there are no footsteps, only wet chewing sounds. We're not alone down here anymore, and I don't think frame 0 is the only prison. I think it's one of many, and I think the black vans are dropping off keys. I stopped thinking of myself as human sometime after the sirens cut out, not metaphorically. I mean it in a practical sense, like when you stop calling a building a house after you've watched it burn with people still inside. Something breaks quietly, and your brain just relabels things so it can keep functioning. That's what frame 0 did to me. The comms vault was never meant to be occupied. It was a panic room for data, not people. Windowless, wrapped in copper mesh and salt-infused concrete, cooled by a system that screamed like a dying animal every time the temperature dropped another degree. The walls were covered in old marker notes, frequencies, encryption keys, names crossed out so violently the concrete underneath was chipped. I wasn't alone at first. There were 7 of us when the West Wing opened. By the time the air started feeling wrong, there were 4. We barricaded the vault door with a server rack and whatever furniture we could drag in. Someone, Mara, I think, kept whispering that she could hear breathing in the vents. Not airflow, breathing, slow, curious, like someone learning how lungs worked for the first time. The internal map flickered on the wall monitor. Red zones everywhere, cells blinking offline, not because doors opened, but because the rooms were gone, like someone had just deleted sections of the prison. No rubble, no alarms, just absence. A dead pixel in reality. That's when we got the file. No sender, no timestamp. It just appeared in the vault's isolated system, which shouldn't have been possible unless someone was physically plugged in. The file name was frame 0, origin, final, real, dot, final, 21.mp4. I didn't want to open it. I opened it anyway. The video started with a man sitting at a desk, clean room, neutral lighting. He looked like a corporate spokesperson. Gray suit, calm eyes, the kind of face you trust because it looks like it's being focus grouped. He smiled. "Hello," he said. "If you're watching this, containment has failed. Again." He introduced himself as Dr. Harlan Voss, founding architect of Frame, not Frame 0, just Frame. He said that like it was important. Then he said the sentence that still makes my hands shake. "We never built prisons to hold them. We built stages to attract them." Frame 0 wasn't the first. It was the smallest. He explained it like a business pitch. These subjects, these events, they didn't appear randomly. They clustered. Wherever one manifested, others followed. Patterns, gravity, like sharks smelling blood. So Frame was built as bait. Places loud enough, violent enough, unnatural enough to pull more of them out of hiding. Every prison was designed to fail eventually, not by accident, by design. "They don't escape," Voss said, still smiling. "They converge." The video cut to surveillance footage I had never seen. Not from Frame 0, from places all over the world. A subway tunnel beneath Paris, collapsing inward like it was being swallowed. A hospital in Manila, where patients started aging backward until they screamed themselves into infants, and then nothing. A McDonald's in rural Texas, where every employee walked into the freezer at the same time and never came out. When responders opened it, there was only frost and teeth embedded in the walls. Voss leaned closer to the camera. "You can't hunt gods," he said, "but you can make a dinner bell." The video ended with a map. Red dots, dozens, hundreds. Frame 0 was just one, and every single one had gone dark within the last 48 hours. That's when Mara started screaming. Not panicked screaming, recognition screaming. She was pointing at the map, at a dot in Nevada, another in Siberia, one in the middle of the Pacific, with no land around it at all. "I've been there," she kept saying. "I've been there. I've dreamed those places." Before anyone could stop her, she slammed her head into the wall. Once, twice, over and over, no hesitation, like she was trying to knock something out of her skull. When we restrained her, she bit through her own tongue. She didn't bleed much. That's when I noticed something else. The vault monitor, our internal camera feed, was no longer showing the hallway outside. It was showing us, from above. The angle was wrong, too high, like the ceiling had eyes. I waved. The camera waved back. We lost power completely after that. Emergency lights kicked in, painting everything red, the kind of red that makes skin look like raw meat. The vault got colder. The breathing in the vents got closer, rhythmic, practiced. Someone started praying. I don't remember who. It didn't sound sincere, more like muscle memory firing off one last time. Then came the knocking. Not on the door, on the inside of the walls. One knock, pause, two knocks, pause, three. A pattern, Morse code. One of the engineers, Lev, went pale. He whispered, "It's spelling." He never finished the sentence. The wall behind him bulged outward like something was pressing its face against it from the other side. The concrete stretched, cracked. A handprint appeared. Too many fingers, too long, joints bending the wrong way. A voice came through the wall. Not loud, intimate. "You helped build the mouth," it said. "Now let us speak." The wall collapsed inward, not exploded, folded. Lev was gone, not dragged, not torn apart, just absent, like a sentence with a word removed. In his place was a hole that didn't lead anywhere. No other room, no tunnel, just black, and the black was moving. We ran, down corridors that kept changing, hallways looping back on themselves, doors opening into places that didn't exist on any blueprint. At one point, we passed a break room that looked completely normal. Coffee machine humming, a half-eaten donut on the table, someone's phone buzzing with TikTok notifications. The phone was mine. I watched myself on the screen, standing in the hallway, watching the break room. The version of me on the phone smiled. Then it turned the camera around, and I saw the black van, parked inside the prison. The remaining two of us, me and a woman named Elise, made it to sub-level 4, the oldest part of frame 0, the part that was never finished. That's where we found the writing on the walls, not graffiti, instructions, written in dozens of languages, overlapping, carved deep into steel and concrete, like someone had used bone as a chisel. "Do not let them know you see them. Pretend to be empty. They wear us when we sleep." Elise started laughing. Ugly, broken laughter. She said, "They're not breaking out." She looked at me with eyes that weren't tracking correctly anymore. "They're checking inventory." The lights went out completely. In the dark, something brushed past my arm. It felt like skin. It whispered my name, and it knew it. If you're reading this and thinking this sounds impossible, good. Hold on to that. Because once you accept that places like frame 0 can exist, once you accept that prisons can be built not to hold monsters, but to invite them. You start noticing the vans, parked too long outside Walmart at 3 a.m., idling behind Starbucks dumpsters, windows tinted so dark they don't reflect anything at all. And you start wondering, when the doors open, are they letting something out or letting something in? I don't know how long I ran. Time didn't behave correctly anymore. My watch was dead. My phone showed a date from 3 years in the future, and the prison, what was left of it, kept rearranging itself like it was thinking, not reacting, thinking. Corridors stretched longer when I panicked, shorter when I tried to calm down. Doors appeared where walls had been seconds ago. Familiar places felt wrong, like a childhood home where the furniture has been moved just enough to make you trip in the dark. Elise disappeared without a sound. 1 second she was behind me, whispering, breath hitching, shoes slapping wet concrete. The next, I felt something brush my shoulder, warm, almost affectionate, and when I turned, the hallway was empty. No blood, no drag marks, no scream echoing, just a faint smell, like burned hair and hospital disinfectant. I didn't call her name. I'd learned by then that saying names was a bad idea. I ended up somewhere I shouldn't have been able to reach. A staircase spiraling down, carved directly into bedrock. No lights, no handrails, just bare stone slick with moisture. Each step worn down like it had been used for centuries. Frame 0 wasn't supposed to go this deep. According to every blueprint I'd ever seen, below sublevel 4 was solid earth, but someone had been busy. At the bottom of the stairs was a door, not steel, not reinforced. Wood, old, cracked, swollen from damp. The kind of door you'd expect on a basement in a house that should have been condemned decades ago. Someone had scratched numbers into it, not in sequence, just tallies, hundreds of them, thousands. I tried the handle. It opened. Inside was a room that felt wrong in a way I still don't have words for. Not hostile, not threatening, familiar. The walls were lined with shelves, and the shelves were filled with objects, personal objects, shoes, wallets, phones, ID badges, a Starbucks cup with someone's name still written on it in Sharpie, a child's backpack with a keychain shaped like Mickey Mouse, all of it labeled, dates, times, locations. I found my own badge on one of the shelves. It had today's date. In the center of the room was a chair, bolted to the floor, and strapped to it was a man. He was alive, barely. Skin stretched tight over bone, eyes sunken, mouth working soundlessly like he was chewing invisible food. Tubes ran into his arms, his chest, his skull, not keeping him alive, keeping him here. When he saw me, he smiled. "You finally came down," he said, voice shredded. I was wondering when the builder would visit the foundation. I asked him who he was. He laughed, and something dark dripped from his nose. "I'm Subject 0, he said. "Or I was, before you people started counting." He told me everything. Frame didn't start with prisons. It started with witnesses, people like him, people who saw something impossible and didn't look away, who stared long enough that whatever was on the other side noticed. "They don't like being alone," he said. "They don't like being unseen. So they taught us how to build places where they could be felt. The prisons weren't bait. They were nurseries, spaces where reality was thin enough for them to practice, to learn how to wear bodies, how to speak language, how to drive vans and use key cards and smile at cameras. Every subject you locked up," he said softly. "That was a lesson. For them." I asked him why he was still alive. His smile widened, splitting his lip. "Because someone has to remember how it started," he said. "And because they like it when I watch." Something moved behind me. I didn't turn around. The room got colder. The shelves started to vibrate, objects rattling like teeth in a skull. Subject Zero's eyes tracked something over my shoulder, and for the first time, fear flickered across his face. "They're done pretending," he whispered. The lights, there were lights now somehow, flickered on, and I saw them. Not all at once. Pieces first. A hand resting on a shelf, fingers too long, nails manicured. A face forming out of shadow, features sliding into place like wet clay being molded. Another shape, standing too close behind me, so close I could feel its breath. But when I looked down, there were no feet. They weren't monsters. They were trying to be people. One of them wore a security uniform. Another had a lab coat. One looked like a teenager, hoodie up, phone in hand, scrolling through something that wasn't there. They spoke over each other, voices overlapping, mismatched. Did we do it right? Is this how you stand? Why does it hurt when we smile? Are we convincing yet? Subject Zero started screaming. They turned to him, and then they stepped inside him. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean his skin stretched, tore, opened like a doorway, and they flowed into him. Faces pressed against the inside of his flesh, eyes blinking through muscle, mouths forming where his chest used to be. He didn't die. He became crowded. They looked at me through him. "We need more rooms," they said in unison. "This one is full." I ran again. I don't remember how I got out. I don't remember passing the stairs. I just remember bursting through a door I didn't recognize and collapsing onto cold metal. I was in the vehicle bay. The black vans were lined up neatly, engines idling, doors open like mouths waiting to be fed. Inside each one, there were seats, cameras, restraints, and drivers. They looked normal, bored even. One of them was sipping from a McDonald's cup, tapping the steering wheel to music I couldn't hear. He looked at me and smiled. "You guys did a great job," he said. "Really, couldn't have done it without you." I asked him where they were going. "Everywhere," he said. "Anywhere people lock their doors and think they're safe." The van started pulling out one by one, disappearing into tunnels that hadn't existed before. I realized something then. Frame Zero wasn't failing. It had graduated. I'm not sure how I escaped. I woke up days later in a hospital in Reykjavik, hooked up to monitors, doctors telling me I'd been found wandering in the snow, naked, dehydrated, screaming about walls with mouths. They said there was no geothermal facility where I described, no missing staff, no underground structure. They showed me satellite images, just empty ice. But sometimes, when the room is quiet, the TV turns on by itself. Always the same channel, always the same time, 3:33 a.m., and the reflection in the black screen. It smiles before I do. After this, I will say one last thing I'll ever write about this, because after that, they won't let me remember anymore. They didn't wipe my memory the way you'd expect. No bright lights, no needles, no men in suits telling me it was for my own good. They let it rot instead. I'm writing this from a place that pretends to be normal. White walls, thin blankets, a window that doesn't open more than 2 inches. The kind of facility you'd mistake for a rehab center or a long-term psych ward if you drove past it too fast. There's a McDonald's 5 minutes down the road, a Starbucks across the street where nurses go on their breaks. I can see people scrolling Instagram through the glass, laughing at reels, living in a world that still thinks monsters have rules. They visit me sometimes, not doctors, not therapists, observers. They don't introduce themselves. They don't need to. They already know everything about me, things I never told anyone, things I didn't know about myself until they repeated them back in my own voice. They ask simple questions, like they're checking a box. Are you still seeing the rooms? Do the vans follow you in dreams or while you're awake? Can you still feel when a place is thin? I answer honestly. That seems to please them. The first night here, I tried to sleep. I woke up standing, not walking, not sitting up, standing in the corner of my room, facing the wall, forehead pressed gently against the paint, like I'd been put there by someone else. My feet hurt. My neck was stiff. The clock said 3:34 a.m. I hadn't dreamed. That's important. When I turned around, my bed was neatly made. Hospital corners. Perfect. There was a note on the pillow. Not written, printed. Thank you for your service. I don't scream anymore. That's another thing they seem to like. I've had time to think. Too much time. Frame didn't collapse because it failed. It collapsed because it worked. We proved something fundamental and unforgivable. That reality can be remodeled if you stress it in the right places. That suffering leaves grooves, and if you deepen them enough, something else will settle in comfortably. Prisons, hospitals, shelters, schools, anywhere people go expecting safety, especially places with cameras, especially places where no one looks directly at each other anymore. You don't need rituals, you don't need chants, you don't need blood circles or Latin phrases. You just need infrastructure and patience. They showed me footage yesterday, not as a threat, as a courtesy. A mall in Eastern Europe where all the mannequins were removed overnight, and no one noticed until shoppers started reporting that reflections were lagging behind their movements. A subway platform in Seoul where commuters lined up perfectly still for 6 minutes, blocking trains, eyes unfocused, phones held chest high like offerings. A children's hospital in Canada where every TV turned on at once and played the same cartoon episode on loop. An episode that doesn't exist, starring characters that smile too long and never blink. No fatalities listed. Not yet. Integration phase, one of the observers said, almost fondly. I asked them why they let me live. One of them tilted their head, considering. Because you understand the architecture, they said, and because you're still useful. They slid a tablet across the table. On it was a map, not the world, the internet. Social platforms highlighted like pressure points, trending pages glowing warmer than the rest, comment sections pulsing, live streams, reaction videos, storytime channels, animated horror accounts, places where millions of people willingly synchronize their attention. You built cages, they said. Now help us build doors. I laughed then. I couldn't help it. They didn't laugh back. Here's the part that will stay with you, whether you want it to or not. I don't think they're invading. I think they're replacing, slowly, carefully, one job at a time, one routine at a time, one face that looks almost right. They practice in reflections, because reflections don't argue. They practice speech in comment sections, because no one listens closely there. They practice empathy by copying it, the way an algorithm learns tone without understanding meaning. And sometimes, this is the worst part, they get it almost perfect. I've met one, a nurse. She brought me my meds yesterday, smiled. asked how I was feeling. Her badge photo matched her face. Her voice had the right warmth. Her hands were steady, but she never blinked. And when she turned to leave, I saw that her reflection in the TV screen followed her half a second late. She paused, looked back at me, and for just a moment, her smile slipped, like she was tired of holding it. "Thank you again," she said. "We couldn't have done this without builders like you. They're not going to erase me. They're going to let me fade. Because stories like this don't spread the way they used to. They get upvoted, narrated, animated, reacted to, and then forgotten. Filed under fiction, content, entertainment, background noise while someone eats dinner. That's the genius of it. You're reading this because you like being scared. You think that puts you at a distance. It doesn't. It puts you exactly where they want you, paying attention, imagining, opening the door just a crack. So here's my last contribution. Tonight, when you catch your reflection doing something you didn't tell it to do, when your phone camera opens by itself, when a van idles too long outside a place it doesn't belong, when a building feels like it's listening, don't investigate, don't record, don't try to be brave, because the prisons are gone, and now we're the rooms. Recap time for this story. A bored graphic designer stumbles onto a deep web forum called Hollow Frame, claiming to capture and contain people with supernatural abilities called subjects. Drawn in by curiosity, he joins the group and helps build Frame Zero, an off-grid, underground prison in Iceland designed to hold these dangerous anomalies. But the deeper he gets, the stranger things become. Subjects don't behave like humans. Reality begins to distort. Security footage vanishes. People disappear. One subject, number 12, consumes light and possibly human bodies. Rooms are found with chewed cameras and impossible architecture. A black van appears outside the facility and disappears without a trace, triggering total lockdown. It's eventually revealed that Frame Zero was never about containment. It was bait, built to attract entities that want to mimic and replace humans. Each subject isn't just imprisoned, they're learning how to be us. The black vans, not surveillance, they're delivery. As the prison falls apart, the narrator discovers an ancient sublevel with Subject Zero, who confirms they're building doorways, not cages. Frame Zero didn't fail. It succeeded. The entities have learned enough. Now they're leaving the prisons and moving in. The story ends with the narrator locked in a facility, used by the invaders as a builder, as the creatures integrate into everyday life, as nurses, baristas, influencers, animated storytellers, spreading through reflections, videos, and social media platforms. He warns, the prisons are gone, and now we're the rooms.